Hi, my name's Arely Corro Sanchez. Today I am here with Thomas for our multimedia capstone class, doing interviews on housing and homelessness here in Portland, Oregon. So, when it comes to affordable housing, what are some of the hurdles that you have come across?
The neighborhoods in Portland, like when I was looking for an apartment, I noticed that rents were somewhat dependent on like the public transportation system. And I think the only reason I can afford my apartment is just because it's really hard to take public transportation anywhere. And that the places where it would be like really easy for me to get around were too expensive.
Okay.
The availability. Say there's only set number of available houses for this price, and you can only afford that house, or that if you can only afford living in this specific spot, and there's all these people that can only afford living in that spot as well. That's the challenge. Say one person gets it, another person does not. Where do you go from there? Yeah, it comes down to the numbers game, you know? There's only a certain amount of spots available for this amount of price, and this many people can afford that price. So once they're taken up, then what happens? That's the challenge, and that's what I was thinking about.
No, because I just got out of my teenage years, and I'm still living with my parents.
Primarily the unaffordability and being alone as I am. The unaffordability regarding that, I have never lived away from like home before, and like considering now, I can't imagine having to navigate that by myself, even with help.
Do you believe that there is a middle class?
Actually, I did do an assignment where the middle class is slowly disappearing, and I heard that like the U.S. is a nation of like the rich and poor only, and we've divided a line between us.
Okay, so how far can you see that line or that division going forth in terms of housing and homelessness?
Like in the world, like in general.
Just here in Portland or in...
I think that this might be an oncoming, like I think it will continue to go on because it's always been a problem here. And I feel like some places like forget that Portland is like a place and that people actually do need help here, and they forget that people are straight up living in the streets.
Well, I think there's a very idealized view of what Portland is. And so I think that when, wealthy, affluent people move here and then realize that this is not like their quote-unquote white utopia or hipster utopia that was like fed through them through like pieces of media like Portlandia, that's just, all sunshine and rainbows, and they discover that it's a real city with like working class people and people who are mentally ill and people who like don't have housing. I feel like I might be straying from your question,
No,
but
you're completely fine.
I think that like, for instance, like I've worked downtown and like I hear like constantly how like people who've only lived here for like 2 years like, oh, the homeless downtown is crazy, it's awful, it's bad. And I'm like, A, you live in a city in like late stage capitalist America, that's how it's going to be. B, the reason they're on the street and you get to complain from them from your like wine, spirits, boutique, what have you, is because the reason that you get to sit there and complain while they're out on the street is because you kicked them out of where they had to live or where they could like go, and you funnel some money into resources, but you don't funnel money into housing like you should.
Okay.
There's classes, there's mid-class, low-class, and the high-class. So on the low, I always feel bad for them. Every time I pass by, I want to give them money, and when I don't, I feel like guilt in me. So, yeah, I always try to help them, but I don't like to judge them, because that could be me in the future if I don't work by myself, if I don't like grind, Yeah, so judging people, I don't think that's right.
I definitely see the middle class decreasing. I feel like it's just happening now as well as rent goes up, and because I witness it firsthand with my mom. I help her pay the bills with what I can from my scholarship and how much I earn from here, and just watching that firsthand almost feels, again, surreal. So regarding homelessness in the future, I think unfortunately it's going to get worse, but I do think more support programs will pop up and do what they can, like you guys are trying to do, which I think is really cool.
Can you see yourself living that American dream, owning the house, having a family, that, white picket fence that we dream of?
Fuck no.
No? Okay. So why are you so adamant about saying no to that question?
Because I think that making money is one of the biggest problems in in America. Like, trying to live on your own or trying to help others.
I mean, honestly, well, you know, there's a lot of discourse about the American dream, but my personal view is that it was a lie and a fallacy. And, you know, some people it worked out for them. Hell yeah, works out for you. But I don't think that's something that is achievable for most people my age. I feel like it's definitely achievable for a lot of people who have that foundation of security. But I don't think that someone, especially going into the career that I'm going into and, you know, living the life that I foresee myself living, I don't think that's a feasible thing in at least the next 15 years. I think that's like maybe going to be like by the time I get to 40, I might see that, but God knows, you know.
Currently, no. Just because I'm a college student, in order for me to be here, that means I have to get help from someone. And I think the only way I could afford, like, you know, the American dream would be, you know, to get a career with a degree. Being in retail, I see, like, store managers and even, like, regional managers, just, like, that do make significantly more than me that are still not available. Like, they can't afford those, you know, what I would call luxuries, but I think should be, like, the standard. Like, I don't work with anyone that owns a home, even people that are, like, 30 years older than me. So I'm not feeling terribly encouraged. I don't really know very many adults in my life that own a home.
In the future, I hope so, but how things are going right now, I don't think I'll be living in a house with the mortgage too. Mortgage rates are all-time high right now, so I don't think so. I might just own a condo or something like that, yeah.
Okay.
I want that, but in my heart, I don't think that's attainable, at least not anytime soon. Like, I feel like that could only ever be attainable in my retirement years. And I can't even imagine my retirement years, by the way. I don't know how long I'm going to have to be working, especially pursuing creative writing. So, in short, I don't think it's realistically attainable, at least not in the time frame that a student would desire.